Chapter 13. How much mediate revelation, which is effected through the Word, surpasses immediate revelation, which is effected through spirits. It is believed that man might be more enlightened and become more wise if he should have immediate revelation through speech with spirits and with angels, but the reverse is the case. Enlightenment by means of the Word is effected by an interior way, while enlightenment by immediate revelation is effected by an exterior way. The interior way is through the will into the understanding. The exterior way is through the hearing into the understanding. Man is enlightened through the Word by the Lord so far as his will is in good, but man may be instructed, and as it were enlightened through the hearing, though the will is in evil. And what enters into the understanding with a man whose will is in evil is not within, but without him. It is only in the memory, and not in the life. And what is without a man, and not in his life, is gradually separated, if not before, yet after death. For the will which is in evil either casts it out, or suffocates it, or falsifies and profanes it. For the will makes the life of man, and continually acts into the understanding, and regards as extraneous that which is from the memory in the understanding. On the other hand, the understanding does not act into the will, but only teaches in what manner the will should act. Wherefore, were a man to know from heaven all things which even angels ever know, or if he were to know all things that are in the Word, and that are in all the doctrines of the Church, and moreover all that the fathers have written, and councils decreed, and yet his will be in evil, he would after death be looked upon as one who knows nothing, because he does not will what he knows. In such case, because evil hates truths, the man himself casts them out, and in their place adopts falsities, agreeing with the evil of his will. Moreover, no leave is given to any spirit or even angel to instruct any man on this earth in divine truths, but the Lord himself teaches every one through the Word, and teaches him so far as the man receives good from the Lord in the will, and this the man receives so far as he shuns evils as sins. Again, every man is in a society of spirits, as to his affections and thoughts thence, in which he is as one with them. Wherefore spirits, speaking with man, speak from his affections, and according to them. Man cannot speak with other spirits, unless the societies in which he is be first removed, which cannot be done except by the reformation of his will. Because every man is in a society with spirits who are of the same religion with himself. Therefore spirits, speaking with him, confirm all things which he has made a part of his religion. Thus enthusiastic spirits confirm all things of enthusiasm with the man. Quaker spirits all things of Quakerism, Moravian spirits all things of Moravianism, and so on. Hence come confirmations of falsity which can never be extirpated. From this it is plain that mediate revelation, which is effected through the Word, is better than immediate revelation, which takes place through spirits. As for myself, I have not been allowed to take anything from the mouth of any spirit, nor from the mouth of any angel, but from the mouth of the Lord alone. Chapter 14. The Word in the Heavens. The Word is in all the heavens. It is read there, as in the world, and they preach from it. For it is the divine truth from which the angels have intelligence and wisdom. Since without the Word no one knows anything of the Lord, of love and faith, of redemption, or of any other arcana of heavenly wisdom. Yea, without the Word there would be no heaven. As without the Word there would be no church in the world, thus there would be no conjunction with the Lord. That there is no such thing as natural theology without revelation, and in the Christian world without the Word, has been shown above. If it cannot exist in the world, neither can it exist after death. For such as a man is as to his religion in the world, such he is as to his religion after death when he becomes a spirit. And the whole heaven does not consist of any angels created before the world, or with the world, but of those who have been men, and were then interiorly angels. These, through the Word, come in heaven into spiritual wisdom, which is interior wisdom, because the Word there is spiritual. The Word in the spiritual kingdom of the Lord is not like the Word in the world. In the world, the Word is natural, but in that kingdom it is spiritual. The difference is as that between its natural sense and its spiritual sense. And what this spiritual sense is has been shown in many places in the Arcana Celestia, where all things in Genesis and Exodus have been explained according to that sense. Such is the difference that no word is the same. Instead of names, there are in the spiritual sense things. Instead of numbers and historical facts, are things relating to the church. But what is wonderful, when an angel reads the word in heaven, he knows not otherwise than that it is like the word which he read in the world. The reason is that he no longer has any natural ideas, but in their place spiritual ideas, and the natural and the spiritual are so conjoined by correspondences that they make as it were one. When therefore one comes from what is natural into what is spiritual, it appears to him as if it were the same. Yea, an angel does not know that he is wiser than he had been in the world, although he has wisdom so supereminent as to be ineffable in comparison. Nor can he know the distinction, because in his spiritual state he knows nothing of his natural state in which he was in the world. Neither can he compare and discriminate them, because he does not return into his former state and so make a comparison. Nevertheless, an angel is perfected in wisdom continually, in heaven more than in the world, because he is in purer affection for spiritual truth. But the word in the celestial kingdom of the Lord is of far greater excellence and wisdom than is the word which is in his spiritual kingdom. And they differ in a degree similar to that of the difference between the natural word, which is in the world, and the spiritual word of which we have been speaking. For in that word there is an inmost sense, which is called celestial, in which all things of the word treat of the Lord alone. In this word, instead of Jehovah is read the Lord, and instead of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, also instead of David, Moses, Elijah, and the other prophets, the Lord is named, and his divine, as meant by them, is distinguished by peculiar marks. By the names of the tribes of Israel, which are 12, and also by the names of the apostles in the word, something of the Lord, as to the church, is read, and so throughout. From this it has been made plain to me that the whole sacred Scripture, in its inmost sense, treats of the Lord alone. There is a like difference between those two words, the spiritual and the celestial, as between the thoughts which are of the understanding and the affections which are of the will. For the angels of the celestial kingdom are in love toward the Lord, and thence in the affection of good, and the angels of the spiritual kingdom are in faith in the Lord, and thence in the perception of truth. The spiritual word and the celestial word differ also as to the writing. The writing of the spiritual word is of letters which are similar to the type letters in our world, but every letter expresses a meaning. If, therefore, you should see that writing, you would not understand a single expression, for it is written letter next to letter in a continuous series, with little lines and points above and below being written according to spiritual speech, which has nothing in common with natural speech. The angels, in proportion as they are wiser, see in their words so written more interior arcana than simpler angels see. The hidden things therein appear clearly before the eyes of the wise, but not before the eyes of the simple, in like manner as with our word, though still more so, in which also the wise see more than the simple. But the writing of the celestial word is composed of letters unknown in the world. They are indeed alphabetic letters, but each one is made up of curved lines with little horns above and below, and there are dots or points in the letters, and also below and above them. It was said that the most ancient people on this earth had such writing, agreeing in some respects, but only slightly, with Hebrew writing. By such writing are expressed the affections of love, so that it involves more arcana than they themselves can utter, and they express these unutterable arcana which they perceive from their word by representations. The wisdom which lies hid in this word transcends the wisdom which is in the spiritual word as thousands to one. That the difference between the three words, the natural, the spiritual, and the celestial, may be understood, let us take for illustration the first chapters of Genesis, which treat of Adam, his wife, and paradise. In the natural word, which is in the world, is described the creation of the world and the first creation of man, and his pleasures and earthly delights, and by the persons named after him, even to the flood, are meant his posterity, and by the numbers, their ages. But in the spiritual word, which is with the angels of the spiritual kingdom, are not meant those things, but in the first chapter is described the reformation and regeneration of the men of the most ancient church, which is also called the new creation. In the second chapter, by paradise, is described the intelligence of the men of that church, by Adam and his wife, that church itself, and by their posterity, even to the flood, are described the changes of state of that church until it declined, and finally its destruction by the flood. But in the celestial word, or in the word which is with the angels in the celestial kingdom of the Lord, in the first chapter is described the glorification of the Lord's human. Instead of paradise is described his divine wisdom. By Adam himself is there meant the Lord, as to the divine itself, and at the same time the divine human, and by his wife, the church, which is called Chava, meaning Eve, from life, because it has life from the Lord. Of her Adam said that she was his bone and his flesh, and that they were one flesh, because the church is from the Lord and of him, and as one with him. By the names which are the posterity of Adam are there described the successive states of reception of the Lord, and of conjunction with him, by the men of that church, even until there was no longer any reception, and therefore no conjunction. When, therefore, these first chapters of our word are read by upright men, and especially when they are read by little boys and girls, and they are affected with joy from the state of the creation of all things, and from paradise, then those senses are evolved, and the spiritual angels understand them according to their word, and the celestial angels according to theirs, without knowing that the man or child is reading it. For those senses are evolved in their order, because they correspond, and correspondences are such from creation. From these things it is plain what the word is in its bosom, namely that there are in it three senses, the ultimate which is natural for man, and which in many places treats of worldly things, and where it treats of divine things, still they are described by such things as are in the world, a middle sense, which is spiritual, in which are described such things as relate to the church, and an inmost sense which is celestial, in which are contained such things as relate to the Lord. For all nature is a theatre representative of the Lord's kingdom, and the Lord's kingdom, which is heaven and the church, is a theatre representative of the Lord himself. For as the Lord glorified his human, so also he regenerates man, and as he regenerates man, so also he created him. From this it may be evident what is the nature of the word in its bosom. The natural word, such as is in the world, in Christendom, contains within itself both the spiritual word and the celestial word, for the spiritual sense of our word is the word in the heavens, which constitute the Lord's spiritual kingdom, and the celestial sense of our word, which is its inmost sense, is the word in the heavens which constitute the Lord's celestial kingdom. Consequently, in our natural word is contained both the spiritual word and the celestial word. But in the spiritual word and the celestial word is not contained the natural word. For this reason the word of our world is the most full of the divine wisdom, and therefore more holy than the words of the heavens. Chapter 15. The ancient word that is lost. That there was a word with the ancients, written like our word by mere correspondences, but that this has been lost, has been told me by angels of the third heaven. They said, further, that this word is still preserved with them, and is in use among the ancients in that heaven, whose word it was when they were in the world. Those ancients, with whom that word is still in use in the heavens, were in part from the land of Canaan and its borders, and also from certain kingdoms in Asia, as from Syria, Mesopotamia, Arabia, Chaldea, Assyria, and Egypt, from Sidon and Tyre, the inhabitants of all of which kingdoms were in representative worship, and thus in a knowledge of correspondences. Their wisdom at that time was from that knowledge, since by it they had communication with the heavens, and interior perception, and also many had converse with spirits. But because that word was full of such correspondences which remotely signified heavenly things, and for that reason in the course of time began to be falsified by many, therefore from the divine providence of the Lord it gradually passed out of sight, and another word was given, which was written by correspondences less remote, and this through the prophets with the sons of Israel. In this word, however, the names of places in the land of Canaan and in Asia round about were retained and kept their signification. For this reason, the posterity of Adam from Jacob were introduced into the land of Canaan, and the word in which those places were to be named was there written. That there was such a word with the ancients is plain also in Moses, by whom it is mentioned and something is taken from it. The historicals of that word were called the wars of Jehovah, and the propheticals the Annunciations. From the historicals of that word Moses took these words. Wherefore it is said in the book of the wars of Jehovah, at Vaheb in Suphah, and the streams of Arnon, and the channel of the streams that descend towards the dwelling of Ar, and reach to the border of Moab. By the wars of Jehovah are there meant and described the combats of the Lord with the hells and victories over them, when he should come into the world. The same combats are also meant and described in many places in the historicals of our word, as in the wars of Joshua with the nations of the land of Canaan, in the wars of the judges, and in the wars of David and the rest of the kings. From the propheticals of that word, these words were taken by Moses. Wherefore the prophetic Annunciations say, Come ye to Heshbon, let the city of Sihon be built and established, for a fire has gone out of Heshbon, a flame from the city of Sihon. It hath devoured Ar of Moab, the possessors of the high places of Arnon. Woe to thee, Moab! Thou hast perished, O people of Chemosh. He hath given his sons as fugitives, and his daughters into captivity. Unto Sihon, king of the Amorites, with darts we have destroyed them. Heshbon is perished even into Dibon, and we have laid them waste even unto Nophah, which is even unto Medeba. That these propheticals were called Annunciations, and not proverbs or the makers of proverbs, as the translators render it, may be evident from the signification of the word maskilim in the Hebrew language, which means not only proverbs but also prophetic enunciations, as may appear elsewhere in Numbers, where it is said that Balaam put forth his enunciation, which also was a prophecy, yea, concerning the Lord. His enunciation is there called mashal in the singular. Furthermore, those things which are described by Moses in those citations are prophecies, but they are not proverbs. That word was in like manner divine, or divinely inspired, is plain in Jeremiah, which are almost the same words, as follows. A fire has gone forth out of Heshbon, and a flame from the midst of Sion, and hath devoured the corner of Moab, and the crown of the head of the sons of tumult. Woe unto thee, O Moab! The people of Chemosh hath perished, for thy sons are carried away into captivity, and thy daughters into captivity. Besides these, a prophetic book of that ancient word, called the Book of Jasher, or the Book of the Upright, is also cited by David and by Joshua, from which it is plain that the historic statement there about the sun and moon was a prophecy from that book. It has moreover been told me that the first 7 chapters of Genesis are so manifestly extant in that same word that not a little word is wanting. The religious systems of many nations have been derived from that ancient word and carried elsewhere, as from the land of Canaan, and from various parts of Asia into Greece, and from there into Italy, and through Ethiopia and Egypt into certain kingdoms of Africa. In Greece, however, out of correspondences they made fables, and out of the divine attributes they made so many gods, the greatest of whom they called Jove, from Jehovah. Chapter 16. The Gentiles and peoples outside of the church, who have not the word, and therefore know nothing of the Lord and of redemption. They who have the word are few as compared with those who have not the word. The word is found only in Europe with the Christians, who are called the Reformed. The word is indeed with the Roman Catholics, but is not read, and the kingdoms devoted to that religion, as France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, more than half of Germany, and also of Hungary as well as Poland, do not read it. The word is also but little read in Russia, but yet it is believed to be holy. Communication through the word. Only in England, Holland, certain duchies in Germany, and in Sweden and Denmark is the word taught and preached. But in Asia, Africa, and the Indies, with the Gentiles, who are more numerous than the Reformed Christians, the word is unknown. But that the word might not be lost, it has been provided by the Lord that the Jewish nation, with whom is the word of the Old Testament in its original tongue, should still survive and dwell, dispersed through much of the earth. Though this nation denies that the Lord is the Messiah or Christ, foretold by the prophets, and though it is evil in heart, yet the reading of the word by them has communication with certain heavens, for correspondences communicate, whatever the quality of the person who reads, if only he acknowledges the word to be divine. This is the case today as formerly, for when Moses, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, David, Elias, and many others named in the word, are adored by them as deities, then the heavens perceive the Lord, instead of these persons, not knowing the person in the world from whom that holy of worship proceeds. Such is the conjunction of heaven with man by means of the word. Chapter 17. By means of the word, those also have light who are out of the church, and have not the word. The case is thus. There cannot be any conjunction with heaven, unless, somewhere on the earth, there is a church where the word is, and by it the Lord is known. For the Lord is the God of heaven and earth, and without the Lord there is no salvation. It is enough that there be somewhere on the earth a church where the word is. Though it consist of comparatively few, still, by means of it, the Lord is present everywhere in the whole world, and by means of it, heaven is conjoined to the human race, for conjunction is effected by means of the word. But without the word somewhere in the world, there would not be conjunction with anyone. The reason of the presence of the Lord and of the conjunction of heaven with the inhabitants of the earth everywhere by means of the word, is that the whole heaven is before the Lord as one man, and likewise the church, and it is also actually a man, because the Lord is heaven and also the church. In that man, the church, where the word is read and thereby the Lord is known, is like the heart and lungs. And as from those two fountains of life in the human body, all the rest of the members and viscera subsist and live, and so all those in the world who have a religion in which one God is worshipped, and who constitute the members and viscera of that greatest man, which is heaven and the church, subsist and live. For by means of the word in the church, though it be among comparatively few, life is given to the rest from the Lord through heaven, as from the heart and lungs to the members and viscera of the whole body. The communication is also similar. This is the reason that Christians with whom the word is read constitute the breast of that man, and are also in the midst of all. Round about them are the Roman Catholics. Around these are the Mohammedans, who acknowledge the Lord as the greatest prophet, and as the Son of God. Behind them are the Africans, and the Gentiles and peoples of Asia and the Indies constitute the outmost circumference. All who are in that man look also towards the middle region. Moreover, in that middle region where, as already said, are the Christians who have the word, is the greatest light, because light in the heavens is the divine truth, proceeding from the Lord as the sun. The light thence, as from its center, propagates itself to all the borders and enlightens. Hence, the Gentiles and peoples outside of the church are enlightened also by means of the word, for all the light of truth with man is from the Lord through heaven. as it is in the whole heaven, so also is it in every society of heaven. For each society of heaven is a heaven in smaller form, and also is in the sight of the Lord as one man, in regard to which see the work on heaven and hell. There also they who are in the midst, in like manner, relate to the heart and lungs, and with them is the greatest light. The light itself, and the perception of truth thereby propagates itself from that middle portion towards the borders in every direction, and makes their spiritual life. It was also shown me that when those who were in the midst, who constituted the province of the heart and lungs, and with whom therefore was the greatest light, were taken away, those who were round about were in shade, and in so little perception of truth that it was scarcely any at all. But as soon as they returned, the light was seen as before, and there was perception of truth as before. From this it may be seen that the word which is in the Church of the Reformed enlightens all nations and peoples by spiritual communication, which is of this nature. Also that it is provided by the Lord that in this earth there may always be a church where the word is read. When, therefore, the word was almost rejected by the Roman Catholics, by the divine providence of the Lord, the Reformation was effected, and in that the word was again received, and it was also regarded as holy by a noble nation among the Papists. Since without the word there is no knowledge of the Lord, thus no salvation, therefore when the word was altogether adulterated and falsified with the Jewish nation, and hence as it were made of none effect, it pleased the Lord to come into the world, and not only to fulfill the word, but also to renew and restore it, and so again to give light to the inhabitants of this earth, according to the words of the Lord in John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light appeareth in the darkness. He was the true light, which lighteth every man coming into the world. In the same, Jesus said, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. And in Matthew, the people which sat in darkness saw a great light, and to them which sat in the region and shadow of death, to them did light spring up. Since it has been foretold that in the end of this church darkness would also arise, from a lack of knowledge and acknowledgement of the Lord, that he is the God of heaven and earth, and from the separation of faith and charity, whereby the genuine understanding of the word has perished, therefore it has pleased the Lord now to reveal the spiritual sense of the word, and to show that the word treats in that sense of the Lord and of the church, yea, of them only, and to show many other things by which the light of truth, almost extinguished, may be restored. That the light of truth at the end of this church would be extinguished is meant by the words of the Lord in Matthew. Immediately after the affliction of those days, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken, and then they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with glory and power. By the sun is here meant the Lord as to the divine love, by the moon the Lord as to faith, by the stars the Lord as to knowledges of good and truth, by clouds the sense of the letter of the word, and by glory its spiritual sense, and by the Son of Man the Lord as to the word. Chapter 18. The conjunction of heaven with the man of the church by means of the sense of the letter of the word. From much experience it has been given me to know that the word opens heaven to man, that is, when man reads the word, or speaks from it, communication is effected with heaven. I have read the prophetic word through from Isaiah even to Malachi, and it was given to perceive that every chapter, yea, every verse, was perceived in some heavenly society. And because the spiritual sense, and not the sense of the letter, is communicated, therefore the angels of the society did not know that these things came from any man. Such things as are inwardly in the word appear to them as if they thought them from themselves. There were with me African spirits from Abyssinia. Their ears were once opened, so that they heard singing in a certain temple in the world, from the Psalms of David, and they were affected with such delight that they sang together with the singers. But soon their ears were closed, and they did not hear from there the singing of any one. And then they were affected with still greater delight, because spiritual, and at the same time they were filled with intelligence, because the psalm in the spiritual sense treated of the Lord and of redemption by him. The delight of their heart's joy was for a little time communicated with a certain heavenly society from the Christian world, and that society came thereby into similar delight. Hence it was plain that communication with the whole heaven is given by means of the word. I pass over 1,000 other experiences by which I have been convinced that the sense of the letter of our word produces that effect, yea, that the spiritual sense without its companion, the natural sense, does not communicate with heaven. The reason of this is that the Lord flows in from firsts through ultimates, therefore from himself into the natural sense of the word, and from that calls forth or evolves its spiritual and celestial senses, and thus, enlightening, teaches and leads the angels. Wherefore the Lord is called in the word the first and the last. From this it is plain that the doctrine of the Church, unless it be gathered and confirmed from the sense of the letter of the word, has no power, because it does not communicate, but doctrine from the sense of the letter, and together with it, does have power. Chapter 19. The truths which are called truths of faith, and the goods which are called goods of love, are ineffably increased in the internal senses, thus in the heavens. The quality of the natural sense without the spiritual and celestial senses, and the reverse. The reason of this, that natural things are effects from spiritual, and spiritual things are effects from celestial, and the effect consists of so many things which are causes that do not appear before the eyes, as may be said to reach to infinity. The effect is gross, and the cause enters every effect, and composes it as its own general, in which are particulars and single things altogether beyond the sphere of the sight of the eye. It is comparatively like a tree, which appears before the eyes luxuriant with branches, leaves, and fruits. All these are effects, but if you could examine a branch within as to the filaments, or a leaf as to fibers, or the fruit as to each and all things of it which are invisible, and the seed as to its invisible parts, of which the tree with all its members consists, you would see how innumerable and indescribable things lie hidden from the eyes. Once a flower was opened before the angels as to its interiors, which are called spiritual, and when they saw, they said that there was within it as it were a whole paradise, consisting of indescribable things. It is also like the human body, with all its members and organs that appear before the eye, as compared with its interiors, where so many organic forms, by pure arcana of all the sciences, making so many bodies from one, even so that you might say that into it are gathered arcana of all the sciences, as physics, chemistry, mechanics, geometry, acoustics, optics, which arcana of the sciences can in no wise be explored, because not comprehended. Such is the internal with respect to the external, or the spiritual with respect to the natural, and the celestial with respect to the spiritual. The natural in itself regarded is nothing else than an external form, which is called the effect of spiritual things, and the spiritual is an external form, which is called the effect of celestial things. Wherefore everything spiritual is from the celestial, and everything natural is from the spiritual. From this it is plain how it is to be understood that truth is the form of good, that good has its quality in truths, because form is in them, and without form quality is lacking, and that truth exists from good as from its own living cause, and that if you remove good from truths, it is as if you should take the kernel from an almond, the truth being like its shell, or as if you should take out the pulp from fruit and leave only the skin. Hence, truth without good is turned into what is fantastic, which appears externally like truth, but is empty within. So is the natural without the spiritual, and also the spiritual without the celestial. Because there are ineffable things in the spiritual which do not appear in the natural, and innumerable things in the celestial, therefore it is plain what is the nature of the natural, the spiritual, and the celestial, that they are ineffable with respect to one another. They follow after one another, as knowledge, intelligence, and wisdom. Wherefore also men on earth, because they are in natural light, are called by the angels knowing, while angels of the Lord's spiritual kingdom are called intelligent, and angels of the Lord's celestial kingdom are called wise. The word in the sense of the letter may be compared to a tree, surrounded with cortex or bark, entire and endowed with vegetative life, and the spiritual sense may be compared to its nutrition from various juices and essences, partly ascending from the ground, partly imbibed from the air and ether by means of the heat and light of the sun. If the sense of the letter alone existed, and not at the same time the spiritual sense and the celestial sense, the word would be as a tree without sap, or as the bark alone without wood. But with those senses it is like a tree in its perfect state. Indeed, in a tree all the sap passes from the root through the bark or cortex, wherefore when that is taken away the tree dries up. Such would be the case with the spiritual sense of the word without its natural sense. Chapter 20. All the holiness of the word is in the sense of the letter, and there is no holiness in its spiritual sense without the sense of the letter. The spiritual sense without the sense of the letter would be like a house without a foundation, thus like a house in the air. It would be like the human body without its skins, all things of which would be dissipated. As all the interiors of the body have a connection with the peritoneum, the pleura, and the skins, so the spiritual sense of the word is connected with the sense of the letter. The spiritual sense without the sense of the letter would be like the contents without that which contains, thus like wine without a containing vessel. The case is similar with the spiritual without the natural, or the heaven of angels and their wisdom without the human race, and the church therein, and its intelligence from the sense of the letter. The sense of the letter of the word with man makes that connection and that conjunction. This also was the reason why the Lord came into the world, for all of the sense of the letter of the word had been so falsified by the Jews that there was no longer an ultimate of divine truth in man. Therefore the Lord came into the world, and put on the human, that he might also become the word in the sense of the letter, or the divine truth in ultimates, wherefore it is said that the word became flesh. The case is similar with the power of divine truth. All power in the spiritual world belongs to the divine truth proceeding from the Lord. What this power of divine truth there is may be illustrated by many things from experience, of which experience some things may be adduced, and all the power of divine truth resides in the sense of the letter of the word. In the spiritual sense, without the sense of the letter, there is no power, but all in the sense of the letter, in which is a spiritual sense. Wherefore, when spirits quote anything from the sense of the letter, manifest communication with heaven is effected, but not if they quote anything from the spiritual sense without the sense of the letter. Therefore, all answers from heaven have been made, and are made, through such things as are of the sense of the letter. For this reason, the Urim and Thummim in the breastplate of Aaron, his outmost vesture, represented the sense of the letter. For the same reason, in the Apocalypse, the foundations of the New Jerusalem are enumerated as of 12 precious stones, and moreover of pearls, which also signified the sense of the letter. In like manner the cherubim above the mercy seat signified the sense of the letter, wherefore responses were given by this to Moses and Aaron. The order in which the interior things of divine truth rest, from which the angels have wisdom, is simultaneous order, for which reason the sense of the letter is the containant. Therefore all things of the doctrine of the Church are to be confirmed by the sense of the letter of the word, and whatever of doctrine is not confirmed from the sense of the letter of the word has no power. Doctrine confirmed by the sense of the letter as to genuine truth has power. The appearance of divine truth also has power, though less, so far as it can agree with genuine truth. But the sense of the letter of the word, falsified, has no power. It closes and does not open heaven. Chapter 21. The Spiritual Sense. No one can see the spiritual sense except from the doctrine of genuine truth. From this doctrine the spiritual sense can be seen, when there is some knowledge of correspondences. He who is in false doctrine cannot see anything of the spiritual sense. He draws out and applies the correspondences which he sees to the falsities of his doctrine, and thus he can still more falsify the word. Wherefore the true spiritual sense of the word is from the Lord alone. This is the reason why it is not permitted any one in the natural world, nor in the spiritual world, to investigate the spiritual sense of the word from the sense of its letter, unless he is wholly in the doctrine of divine truth and in enlightenment from the Lord. Wherefore from the doctrine of divine truth, confirmed from the sense of the letter of the word, the spiritual sense can be seen. But doctrine can never first be seen from the spiritual sense. He thinks falsely who says with himself, I know many correspondences. I can know the true doctrine of the divine word. The spiritual sense will teach it to me. This cannot be done. But, as has been said, let him say with himself, I know the doctrine of divine truth. Now I can see the spiritual sense, provided I know correspondences. But still this must be in enlightenment from the Lord, because the spiritual sense is divine truth itself in its light, and is meant by glory, and the sense of the letter by a cloud, in passages in the word where these are mentioned. That there is a spiritual sense in the word is to be confirmed by 10 passages in the prophetic word, likewise in the evangelists, and also in the Apocalypse, which passages are to be adduced, and it is to be shown that they would have no meaning without the spiritual sense. Chapter 22. It is better for man, in many passages, to understand the word according to the letter. For example, in what the Lord says concerning cities, concerning the successive states of the church, in the prophets in many passages, as concerning Tyre, in the Apocalypse, and concerning paradise, for the reason that the angels are then in the spiritual sense with man. Chapter 23. The Word. Various things concerning the marriage of good and truth in the Word, to be shown from passages therein. There are chapters and expressions peculiarly pertaining to good, and others to truth. When pertaining to celestial good and truth, as where Judah is treated of, and to spiritual good and truth, as where Israel is treated of. Each chapter has reference to one society, and many to all. In some passages there is a sense from the letters alone, concerning which. Numbers and names of persons and places signify things of which examples are to be given. Chapter 24. The Word in Heaven. They have the Word in the spiritual kingdom in its higher region so written that it may be more and more intelligently understood by one who is intelligent, but simply by one who is simple, in which word stands forth both interior and exterior intelligence, and the interior is written. This is effected by various points above the letters, the points signifying affections, and the series of points expressing the interior things of intelligence continuously to the more intelligent. This word was seen by me, that is, something of it was seen. Something also of the word of the celestial kingdom was seen, in which still more arcana were described, but by various curves and spirals above and within the letters, which are peculiar to the celestial kingdom. These arcana are very transcendent, nor can they be comprehended by an angel of the spiritual kingdom, nor even thought of, wherefore it was said to them that they can no more approximate to the wisdom of angels of the celestial kingdom than can those who are in a natural sphere approximate to the intelligence of angels of the spiritual kingdom, and how far this transcends has frequently been tried. From experience, it was made evident to me that the intelligence of angels of the spiritual kingdom is ineffable and incomprehensible to those who are in the natural kingdom, and that the wisdom of the angels of the celestial kingdom is incomprehensible and ineffable to those who are in the spiritual kingdom. But as to the divine wisdom of the Lord, this so transcends all wisdom that no ratio can be given, for all the intelligence and wisdom of angels is finite, but the divine wisdom of the Lord is infinite, and there is no ratio between the finite and the infinite. The intelligence and wisdom of angels is finite, because angels are recipients, and all recipients are created, and so finite. No chapter 25 is found. Chapter 26. The Word with the Spiritual Angels. Exploration was made as to how the spiritual angels express the words of their speech, and it was found that they express or speak them according to ideas, and from the ideas of the things which they signify, as when they express or speak of a horse and chariot. Then they express them by a word which is significative, as a horse from ideas of the understanding, and a chariot from ideas of doctrine from the word. And in like manner in other cases, so that they speak from the correspondence of those things which they see in like manner as men. In a word, they give names to them from correspondence. It was therefore now disclosed to them, a thing they had not known, that they have correspondences in the words of their speech, and it was disclosed by their examining, in the natural with me, their ideas concerning those things in a spiritual state. In a word, the words of speech of their tongue were all formed from correspondences. Inquiry was made as to how they write, horses harnessed to a chariot. They said that they write only L, and that that letter expresses it. Inquiry was then made how they write the understanding of doctrine. And they said, in like manner, by L, but that they are then in higher thought. From this also it was plain that there are correspondences in the words of their language, but that few of them had attended to this, just as few in this world attend to spiritual light, when the light of the understanding is spoken of, or illumination and enlightenment, and to fire or spiritual heat, when heavenly fire is spoken of, as that which enkindles hearts, not knowing that fire and heat therefrom correspond to love, which is of the heart, that is, to the will, and light to truth, which is of the understanding.